fans, and welcome to another episode of Hambini Destroys. In today's episode we are doing a teardown of these, which are Winspace Hyper wheels. This is the front wheel, so they have been completely, well, they've been ridden and they have been well used, as you can see. So we're going to change the bearings in them because they're bollocks. So let's start off with the back wheel. First thing to do is we need to take the skewer out. Put that to one side. Spray a bit of penetrating fluid in there and then give it a turn. It's actually quite easy. I use some free spray in there. Take that off and put it to one side. Then we need to take the gears off, or sprockets off. Okay, you can see this is all pretty filthy, so as we're going, we're going to clean it. Give it a good clean. This is a bit tricky to explain, but what you do is you put the skewer in at a slight angle. So it's trying to hit, trying not to go through the hole, it's trying to go off the top of it. I don't know if you can quite make that out, but it's pointing slightly upwards. And then give it a tap. And then the cap will fly out. Do the same thing for the other side. And then what you'll have is this. So this is the back wheel with the axle and the free hub. So the next job is when you take the free hub off. Now to get the free hub off, all you've got to do is lift it off slightly and turn it at the same time. And now it comes. So this free hub has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pulls. There's a bit of corrosion in there, but we'll clean that up in a minute, put this somewhere safe. Now we need to get the bearings out of the main hub of the bike. Now to get this out, what you've got to do is you've got to knock on this axle downwards. So I'm going to put a piece of cloth over it, then lift it slightly, get a mallet and tap. And that's not shifting, so we'll have to go for some slightly more pressing means. That didn't work, so we're going to press it out. So what we've got here is a piece of Delrin that will just sit over that, and a piece of plastic that's just basically sacrificial. So we're going to put this onto here with a washer. Thread this through, pop that onto there, and then get the other handle with a washer. Now with all that set up, we just tighten the handle and it should pop the axle out. I think that's got it. Yeah. The bearing has popped out. See, it started to pop out, so we should just be able to tap this out now. So now it should just pop out. And there it is. So we just need to tap it a bit more to get the rest of it out. Okay, so there's the axle. all that remains now is for us to get the other bearing out the other side. So that one looks like a 6803. The other one looks like a 6903. So we just need to figure out how I'm going to get this bearing out. That other bearing is proving to be a bit of a fucker. So what I've done is, in my vise, I've put the smaller bearing in, move the jaws up to the right width, and then we can just tap. Then the axle will come out. So what I've done is I have taken that bearing off, which was that one, and there's the axle left over. I'm now putting this through the non-drive side that way. Now I'm going to use it as a press. Okay, that bearing is a bit stiff, so as we tighten this, it should just push that bearing, the 6903 bearing, out. Ah yes, there we go. I think that is out. If not, tapping it should get it out the rest of the way. So it's partly out. Put the cloth over it and tap, and we got it out. So that one is a 6903 2RS. While we're in here, we can clean all of this up. So if I get some blue roll and some cleaner, I can clean all of that up. So that's all clean, and now we need to fit new bearings. So I'm going to fit 6903 LLUs NTN onto the drive side. So this is the one that came out. It's S&S ceramic, but the one that's going into it, it's going to be steel. So we need to pop that into there, and on the other side we need to fit a 6803. A 6803, which is a considerably smaller bearing. You can see the two sizes there. So the one on the right's a 6903, this one's a 6803. The 6803 is going to go on the other side. Again, if you're going to buy these, just make sure you're not getting fakes, because it's rife everywhere. So in order to fit these, you're going to need an over axle press. So this one's the one for a 6903, and this is the one for a 6803. They look very similar, but the diameters are slightly different. We also need to put the axle through as we do this, so I'll show you how to do that. I've cleaned the axle up. So the 6803 goes onto that end, presses up like that. That goes through the middle. Slide it down as far as it'll go, and then we need to press, set it up and press. All I've done here is made sure the axle is going to get pressed in, the over axle press is going to get pressed in on both sides. So as we tighten, this will actually go in. You can hear that, that's actually a good noise. I think that's about it. Right, now we can take this off and have a look. So I've just taken the press off. You can see that the 6903 bearings in all the way, 6803 bearings in all the way. It's nice and smooth. I mean, they've got full seals on, so they're a bit draggy, but that's what we're aiming for. It's nice and smooth. And now we need to reassemble the rest of it, and also the free hub. Next, make sure you put the spacer on to this side. Don't lose it. It came off with the free hub. So this is the free hub. It's a bit grubby, so we'll just give it a quick clean with some cleaner. Especially the ratchets and the pawls. So that one is not really spinning that well. I think it's just got dirt in it. Either that or the spring's broken, but we'll give it a clean. Suspect it's more likely to be dirt. Yeah, it was dirt. So I'll give that a quick good clean. And then we need to change these two bearings. Now the bearing on this side is completely fucked. That is completely seized. So we need to take that out. In there, what you can see is a spacer tube that I'm moving around. Okay, what we have to do is move the spacer tube out to one direction and then put a punch through and then tap it out. So, let's try that. Might just have to keep moving the spacer tube around just to get it to pop out. Bearing's moving, just not very fast. Let me tap it out and bring it back to you. Okay, once I'd taken it off this flexible table, it just tapped out straight away. So there's the bearing. That one's okay. This one's not, it's completely fucked. So we can just put a socket through there and tap that out. So I'll do that now. Or even use a press. I can probably just tap that with a hammer. It is coming. There we go, bearing came out. And that one's seized, so that one's not spinning at all. It's completely shot. Oh, it's oh, it's starting to go now. Not great though. So again, what we need to do is we need to clean the bearing seats. So we need to do that right now. So I've got the bearing just seated and I'm going to use a quick clamp to get it in. There we go. So that is in. Just give it a quick spin to make sure it's okay. You could use a press, but I've just used a quick clamp. Now for the next bit, we need to put the spacer in. Goes in there, and then the other bearing, which is here, we need to push that into the seat. Now in order to do this, there's a couple of ways to do it. You could use the old bearing to press against, or you could have a dedicated 6803 press. So I'm going to use that. All set up, we'll just tighten it down until it bottoms out. So you can hear the bearing going in. I think that's about it. Yep, take it apart. So let's remove that. That bearing's in, you can see the spacers there. We just need to move it so it's centralised. Oops. We'll get that sorted in a minute. There we go. So that's all lined up. Check these. Now it is worth, at this point, putting a spot of grease on each of them to make sure they continue to work. Now the choice of grease, got a few. So you can either have this, which is like a very thin PTFE, an NLGI 2 grease, or an NLGI 0. So the type I usually use is NLGI 0. So I'm going to put a dab of that all the way around. If you put too much or too thick grease, what happens is the pulls fail to operate. So your ratchet doesn't work. So just bear that in mind. So if we give that a quick test, they're all working fine. so we can marry this up to the rest of the hub. Again, just in here, so where the ratchet pulls and teeth go, I usually put a small dab of grease, nothing too major, because again, if you put too much in there, the ratchet won't work. Get the free hub. Now that tube in the middle needs to be lined up, otherwise it won't go in. You might just have to do a bit of wiggling around. I recommend you put a dab of grease inside that tube, and then as you push it down, you need to turn it anti-clockwise. And that's in. Now the only thing remaining is to put the caps on. Now the caps are sided, so make sure you get them the right way. I think that's the right one. That one on that side, flip it over, and that one on the other. So put the quick release lever through and put your gears back on, and then you're good to go. That's working fine now. Now let's do the front wheel. So front wheel again, take the quick release lever off. Okay, get it at an angle, poke through, and then give it a tap. There's one out. Turn it around and do the other side. And there's the other. Draw the axle out again, so we're going to put this through. 30mm bush and then handle. And that's got one bearing out already. So all we need to do is tap this out. This is fairly easy to tap out because it's a transition fit on the inside. You just use the back of a mallet and then it pops out, and then you can withdraw the axle. So all we've got to do now is get the other bearing out. So I'll just give this a tap. Give that a bit more of a tap through the middle. And the other bearing comes out. Bearings to go in are 6803s. So again, you use NTN with full seals. We need to give the axle a clean, and then it's time for reinstallation. Clean the bearing seats thoroughly. And the bearings go on with the gap in between. Now that one is a bit tight, but it will go on when we push it. I've just got it started. Now it's in the seat. We've just got to sort out the other side. So we'll need again 2 of these to sort this out. So one on that side and another one on both sides to clamp it together. That's all set up. We can just tighten this down now. That one's in. This one's slightly misaligned, so we'll just back it off and then get it so it is aligned, and then tighten it all up. Right, now we can back this off. Now hopefully you can see the bearings in on that side and also on that side, so that it's fully seated. Axle turns smoothly, and that's what you want. It's not ratcheting around, it's not gritty. So now we just put the end caps on. end caps on the front wheel are not sided, so they're identical on both sides. So we can just lubricate the seal slightly and then pop it in. Flip it over and do the same again. So all I've got to do is put the quick release lever through and that's it. This is a exploded view of the front and the rear axle of the Winspace Hyper hubs. The front axle is symmetrical pretty much. You've got, I mean you've just seen it, but there's a 6803 bearing there, 6803 bearing there. Nothing else really to that. It's symmetrical through the middle. A bit more complicated down here on the rear hub. It's got 6803 there, 6803 there, 6903 there, and a 6803 there. Some of the key things you need to worry about when you're tearing this down is this spacer here. Make sure you don't miss that. And that's really about it. The caps are sided, and I've mentioned that already. Now, one of the questions I get a lot is, which bearing should I put in? So these are the part numbers that you'd need. I've put them in 2 categories. So if you want them to last, or you want to go fast. So these are NTN part numbers 6803 and 6903. Now, one of the key problems that you might face with changing these bearings is fakes. Now, the NTN bearings that you can quite often get fakes, and they're rife. It used to be SKF that were just faked all the time, but in the bike industry now, NTN is heavily counterfeited. It is very difficult to be able to tell the difference. Now, NTN has an app called NTN Bear app, and you can scan the box and it'll tell you if it's a genuine bearing. Well, it doesn't actually tell, there's a caveat. It says this will not guarantee it's a genuine bearing. So use it, it will. If someone copies the QR code, they can just copy that you can just breeze through that app. So, to give you an indication of how difficult it is to spot, this is the genuine bearing here, and the fake is on the right, and the quality of the copy is really good. You can see a breakdown of that on the website. There's an article with more pictures and things. So that's NTN. Again, it's not always obvious which one the fake is. Now, if you were to look at that, you would say, because of the shite packaging, this SKF bearing on the left was the fake one, but it's actually the one on the right, and that has all the markings are correct, but it is a fake bearing. So when you open it up and then spin it up, it is fake bearing. Again, I think the real one, I think it's the one on the right on this occasion. But yeah, you can see that is a problem. Now, one of the issues that has arisen, certainly within the UK, is bike shops are buying bearings from any Tom, Dick or Harry, usually the cheapest person out there, who goes and buys B grade or counterfeit stock. Counterfeit stock's pretty obvious. B grade is when a bearing doesn't quite meet the required standards, and then it gets sold off at a low price. And it's got all the packaging and everything looks kosher, but then when you put it in, you get a problem. Right, the tools you'll need. You would need, to do this job, you'd need 6803 over axle press, C9. And bear in mind that C is important because it's a lowercase c, so that indicates smaller than, is it 28mm or 26mm? I'm trying to remember for a 6803. Anyway. And a 6903, and 6903 is 30mm on the outside. So again, you need the C, small c. Press, so you've seen it with a press and some M12 stud. If you can't be bothered to buy a press, then you can use some nuts and some washers, but again, use some thick washers. M10 would probably do the job here, but M12 is a bit stiffer. Next one is grease class. Now, grease comes in NLGI rating, and it's basically how thick and viscous the grease is. I generally use NLGI 0. That is good for everything pretty much. So you can assemble with it, and you can put it into bearings, it's okay. If you want to go fast with bearings, then you really want an LGI 00 or 000. This is quite expensive, but that's for putting it into bearings. When you go down here, so you go past 2 onwards, you're really looking at assembly grease. So that's not suitable for, certainly not for use in the pulls, and certainly not usable for putting in bearings. So just bear that in mind. 2 is probably about the limit. So most greases that you get off the shelf are a 2. That's it. If you've got any questions or comments, then please put them down below. As always, I do read all your comments. I don't reply to them all, but I read them all. Mainly because I ain't got time. There's like 500, there's more comments than I can reply to. So that's it. Until next time, no shitbag scales this week. So till next time, ciao for now.